Hi guys and welcome. Today I thought we'd make some of these beautiful journaling card pockets. So I've got a couple of prototypes here just to show you. So we've got a journaling card in there with lots of journaling space. I've used stickers on this one and we've stamped the border and we've put some acetate. You don't necessarily have to put the acetate on there, it's entirely up to you. That one I've used a sticker as well. And this one here I've used a die cut. So I've inked a die cut and put a moth in there. I didn't really want to highlight the moth. It was more about the flower on there. So I'm going to go through and I will put all the measurements down in the description for you guys. But yeah, let's get on and make one. I'm going to work with some butterflies today. And I may use die cuts again, but we'll see how we go. We've got a few things pulled out, so do something a little bit different to what I've already made. So starting with an A5 piece of cardstock. So this one's got a bit of body in it. It's 300 GSM, but whatever you guys have got. And if you don't have any plain cardstock, then you can definitely use printed cardstock. I use the plain because I like to do a little bit of stamping on that. So grab a scoreboard and we want to score both the top and the bottom. So we put it on the long side and we score just under a quarter. So if you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 marks there to the quarter, we're just going to go the one under it. So it's just slightly under a quarter of an inch to score. And then we turn it around and we do the same on the other side, which is going to be top and bottom of our pocket. Then we turn it on the long side like that, and this one here, if you can see, that is 8.2, so we know the middle's going to be 4.1, and then we just score down the middle like that. And we can put our scoreboard off to the side. So then we fold it in half. So this side is going to be the front. So we want to keep the top and we want to keep the bottom. But on this side, we want to cut that piece off. So on the left-hand side, we want to cut it off. Now a trick here, because that's going to fold over and then those flaps are going to tuck over, is we want to cut on the inside of the score line. It just takes out the bulk and allows the fold that we're going to be doing to fold over neatly. So cut right to the line and then we turn it around. Now this flap we're keeping, so we just want to angle it off each side like that, and then the same down the bottom. So you can angle it as much or as little as you like. And that's what you should end up with. So this is the front of our pocket. I'm then going to turn it over and we're going to measure, if I find my ruler, there it is, 1.5 centimeters in from the border. So when I say border, that score line is the edge, so it's 1.5 in from that, so we get an even frame all the way around. So 1.5 centimeters, I just put a dot, and you're not going to see this, so it doesn't matter if you draw lines on this side because it's going to be inside. So the 1.5 marks on the actual score line, not on the edge where there's a tab. I hope you guys are all doing well. We got some much needed rain last night. We had a massive storm come through. It was a bit of wind, but the rain was so good. Very much needed. It's been really, really dry. We've had bushfires, etc. So, you know, any rain that we get, just going to check that. Sometimes you visually look and it can be deceiving, although it's right. So yeah, the place is quite fresh this morning after all the rain. The bird life's out, getting their breakfast on bugs and everything. And then what I do is I get a cutting mat. So I love this little A5 size. I have it on my desk all the time rather than working off a big one. And then just a little Stanley knife or, you know, craft cutter. This one I bought on Temu probably about a month ago. It was only a couple of dollars. I know you can't replace the blades or anything, but it sits comfortably in your hand. You've got to hold the blade out with your thumb, which is fine because it's a safety thing, I think, to let it go and it retracts back in. So now we're just going to cut along these lines from corner to corner. Oops, I went a bit off the line there, so I'm just going to neaten that up. I went a fair bit off the line there actually. Sometimes it's a bit hard when you can't get your head over it, so when you're videoing you've sort of got to keep your head back and not everything always lines up. And these are pretty easy, guys. Once you've made a few of them, as far as this frame, you would have seen in one of my previous videos, I did some frames with some paper dolls. So you can use the concept in a lot of different things for your journals. So then we've formed the frame, and then that up there tucks over. I'm just going to leave it flat for the time being because we're going to be doing some stamping. So I'll just quickly make one more just to step you through the process again. Sometimes it takes a couple of times to watch something a couple of times to give you the confidence to have a go. So we go on the long side first, and remember we just went just one before the 1/4 of an inch. So it's pretty much 3/4 of a 1/4 if you want to think of it that way. And then we turn it around. Go that way, and then we turn it long ways, and we want to do the half. And this one was 8.2, so we go to 4.1. And we know that this side is our front side. But if you wanted the pocket the other way, then you could make that side your front side. But we're doing them all this way today. So we want to keep these tabs top and bottom, and these are the ones that we want to cut off. And remember that I said go inside the score line when you're cutting. That way when that gets folded under there, that will fold over it. If you get to that stage and you haven't quite cut enough off, you can always come back and cut a little bit more anyway. And then we want to cut our tabs, because we're keeping the tabs on the front. So that's our front, and now we want to turn it over and we want to measure 1.5 centimeters in from the edge and the border. So it's the score lines in this case, the 3 score lines, and then the outer edge. Always when measuring, put your 2 dots because it's easy to line up with your ruler. When you go like that, and then you line it up like that, and you put your line through. So 1.5 centimeters. You can choose any width you like with your frame. If you want a thinner frame, if you want a thicker frame, you just add to those measurements. Depending, I guess, on how much window you want and what you're looking to display. After you've made a couple of these, it's a really fairly quick process. So now I get our little craft knife or Stanley knife, and we go from the corner to the corner. As you can see, you don't need a metal ruler. I'm just using an acrylic ruler. So whatever you've got at home to do this. Always be careful when you're working with a blade as well, because you're applying a little bit of pressure. So this one here, I went inside the line again. I did that one too, so I'm just going to neaten that up. It's like I said, I'm cutting out the front of myself because of the camera rather than the over the top. Just neaten this other side up, a bit down the bottom. So just get it as neat as possible. You can always mask it if you're stamping. You can always mask it with a bit of stamping. If you're using patterned cardstock, then it won't matter too much with your pattern. Lovely, as you can see. You can't tell from the other side anyway. All right, beautiful. So that's the two frames. Now the cards that go inside, so our journaling cards, they are 4 3/4 by 3 3/4. So they're just small enough, they're big enough to have a heap of journaling space, but they're also small enough to be able to slide in and out of the pocket. So 4 3/4 by 3 3/4. That's one. So 4 3/4 by 3 3/4. Lovely. So put that off to the side. These I will round the corners, so that's a step you can decide whether you want to do or not. I actually like the rounded corners on journaling cards. And you can do this after you've stamped on them, before you've stamped on them. Now don't worry too much if you don't have the stamps that I'm using today. I'm using different stamps from various stamp sets. One is School Desk by Stampers Anonymous. The other one is Field Notes by Stampers Anonymous. And then I've got some stamps from AliExpress, and I think I may have one from Temu. So just use whatever you've got. And I'm just going to neaten that up a bit. Use whatever you got, and just because it's sort of collaging. So, you know, if you've only got butterfly stamps or flower stamps, then use that, guys. It doesn't have to be the same. All right, so we're going to pop that off to the side. Just move some tools, bring out ink. So I'm using archival ink. Now I've got this is a big one, which I love. I've got the small one as well, but for the bigger stamps, I get better ink or evenness of the stamp. And I'm using this Record of Books Used. It's like a grid, but any background stamp. You could do script, you know, you could do any type of patterned background, because we're not really featuring the background because we're going to be layering something over the top. It's just basically for a point of interest. Now this one I'm going to try and line up as best I can, but we are going to put something on the edges as well. And don't be too concerned if, you know, it's a hit and a miss here and there, because it is just a background stamp. So, you know, we can put stuff over the top of it. And we certainly don't need it to be perfect. Okay. Now down the edge I had a word, so if you've got a word or a saying, the one I used is, let me find it. Yes, it's got orders attended to day or night, and it's out of the Field Notes, Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous. So I'm just putting it down the side. Like that. You could do it in different colors too. So then I wanted just a little bit down the side, so I used some numbers out of the school desk set. I've only just recently got that. I've wanted it for ages and I've never got around to getting it, and now I have it. So today's the first time I've actually used the set. So it just gives you some numbers. So all we're doing is just filling some spaces, creating a point of interest. So like I said, if you don't necessarily have exactly the same stamps, then just use what you got, guys. And then just to postmark, this one's in Field Notes as well, but you can get these in a lot of different sets. So just use it to make a little, you know, just a little off the page type of stamping. So that's that one. I'm not going to do any more to that. I am going to ink that, and then we can put it to the side, and then we'll get on to stamping our frames. So as you can see, it's a pretty quick process in that if you use some largish stamps, it covers a lot of the area for you. So see how I've sort of blended that in. So where it's not stamped perfectly, it doesn't matter. It actually makes it look a little bit older, more vintage. But just blending or distressing some ink over the top of it. And you'll find that with some of the cheaper stamps, like if you're getting them off AliExpress, Temu, that they don't necessarily stamp perfectly every time. So, you know, you're just going to have to accept that, or, you know, not buy them or not use them. I've had some real failures. So, you know, my favourite brands are definitely Darkroom Door, Stampers Anonymous, you know, Tim Holtz. I like Delusions and Dina Wakley as well. I'm just getting into Creative Expressions and Elizabeth Clark ones. All right, so that's those two. We'll come back to those and put our focal point on there and our tabs, but we'll just park that one off to the side. And we'll bring over our frames. So we're going to do, we're only stamping on the frames, we're not stamping on the back. You can use the back as extra journaling spots, just depending on how you put them into your journal or how you use them. So let's have a look at the front of these. Now I use that number stamp down the edge as well, so I will fold this over, and I'm going to use sort of like a masking effect in that I don't want the stamp to overlap on the background there, so I'm just going to add a bit of page on the inside because I only want the stamped impression down the side here. I'm going to turn it to the side because it's easier for me to line it up. And then I'm also going to put a little bit down in this corner. Like that. So we'll do the other one. I usually always make, when I make something, make a couple because you've got all your stamps out and you will use anything you make, you will use in your journals. If you don't use it in the journal you're working on, you definitely will use it in the next one. And it's really good to have some things like this in your stash. So when you're building your journal or putting it all together, you just, you know, reach for ready-made stuff and you know, you fill your journal very quickly. And then we'll just use the little postmark stamp again and put a couple, I like it up in the corner on the frame. And then another one just off down the bottom. And then what I did, a couple of stamps out of the field notes was the field label. Now I didn't want the top of it because I only wanted to sort of feature the word. So once again we'll use like the masking effect with the page in there because I only want to stamp on this section. Don't worry about getting stamping on the tab because that's going to be folding over to the back anyway. And then we just try and line it up as best we can. You'll be able to get your head over it. And then up the top out of the same stamp set, the field notes, I think going from, because I also run an online craft business, and I would say that the field notes is one of the most sold stamp sets. So if you haven't already got one, guys, you will use, and you like, you know, this type of stamping, you will use it time and time again. It's got some really great stamps in it. It's one of my most popular lines. I'll put a link to my shop below for you guys as well. All right, so I don't want to fill it up too much as far as stamps go, but I want to put some splatters on that. And I do have a little splatter stamp. So this is a little cheapy. It come in like a coffee set. So if you don't have any splatter stamps or coffee stamps, like coffee stain stamps, then that's what you Google. And it's just a AliExpress one, but I absolutely love it. So you can see it just fills the, you know, the spaces up, but doesn't add any like print to it. So it doesn't really make it any busier, but it just gives you that, just that little bit of different contrast and texture. So if we have a look at that, see? And if you don't have the splatter, then you could, you know, splatter some ink on there. But this is quicker and you don't have to wait for it to dry. All right, now we're going to ink the inside because we're going to be putting some acetate on it. We won't be able to ink it after. Well, we will, but it makes it more difficult because we'd have to put a mask over the acetate, and you can't really lift it up and get the angles like this either. The ink I'm using today is walnut stain. One of my favourites. So walnut stain and ground espresso are two of my favourite because I like the darker tones on that. That bit there, I've got the ink open with the black ink open to my right, and because I'm right-handed, I naturally went over there, but I quickly realised and put it over. So it's not going to stand out too much, if you can see that. All right, so let's glue our acetate on. So I've cut 2 pieces of acetate, and they are the same size as our insert. So 4 3/4 inch by 3 3/4 inch. And then I'm just going to use some art glitter glue. So we turn these over, and I run a bead of glue around the edge. Now there's plenty of room on this, so I'm not going right to the edge because I don't want it bleeding out over, because we've got to close this up. If it does, you just let it dry. So just make sure, you know, you don't come over any of the folds, because we're going to be folding that tab over. So art glitter glue dries fairly quickly, but when you're working with acetate, it takes a little bit longer. All right, so I'm just going to let those dry for the time being, and then we're going to work on our tabs off our journaling spots. So bring these back. I'll just lighten that up a little bit for you. So with our tabs, so if we have a look at this one, so I've made these tabs. I haven't used a tab punch, and we're going to make a couple with you now. So if you get your cutter and you get some cardstock, just some scraps, you want to go, the width you want to go 1 3/4. I'll cut a couple because we're working with scraps, because we want to get. Okay, so there can be any length of strips, because we're going to now score it. Just grab my scoreboard. And we want to score down the middle. So down the middle, you could count all along there to work out what the 1 1/2 is. But looking at that, you would go, here's the middle here. So you can eyeball it or you can count it. Now don't fold it yet, because we're going to now cut it into its size, and it's the same measurement, which is 1 3/4. It's just easier to score a longer piece like that. So we go 1 3/4. This is a great way to use your scraps up too, because you can make all these tabs ahead of time. Now these are a little bit wider than I normally use, and the reason being is because the pocket on this is quite deep. The card goes in all the way, so we do want to have enough of the tab to be hanging out the side to grab onto it to pull it out. So then we fold them in half, and then we're just going to notch off the corners. So I made a template earlier when I was making these other ones that I've already cut it out to get it even, but I'm going to cut one here with you now just so you know what I did. So I wanted a little bit of a you know, shelf or frame up here. I didn't want to angle from here, so I went in about here, and then keep your corner and take it over to here. It's a bit fiddly. And that's it. So I then wrote template on it, which is what I've got here. So I know I can get it the same every time now. And I do that a lot with my tags and things I know that I'm going to be making again and again. So you can see it's just an easy process now. We're just cutting the ears off. I only need 2, but I'll finish these couple off. So it's all these little tricks that will save you time in the future. You know, keep a little container with all your templates in. And having a template like this, just make sure you get your top even every time. All right, and then all I did with this one was some stamping, but I sort of wanted a nothing stamp on it, so I actually did the splatters. And then later on you can decide if you want to put words over the top, you know. You can just, another piece of cardstock and just put it over. But this sort of features the tab but doesn't feature the tab. And because we've got the splatters on our frame, which is like this one, it all matches. And then I just do both sides, even though, you know, we're only going to see the other side when we're journaling on the card. But it just tidies it all up, just makes it all uniform. Lovely. And then I'll put those 2 off to the side because we only need 2. I'll ink those. So ink them front and back. Front and back. And then we're going to stick them on. So when I stick them on, I don't push them right over to that. I let them hang out just a fraction. And what I mean is you take it up to where you started your angle, because you want a fair bit of a handle on these ones. Put glue on either side and on the whole lot because we're going to adhere it together. And then just pinch it out there So we're getting the surfaces joining together. That's that one. So you can see it is bigger than you would normally have, but with the project we're doing, it is needed. That way it doesn't matter if you push the card right in, because you've still got a bit of tag. Hanging out the side. Okay, so we might do the eyelets on these, and then we'll put our focal point on there. So I'm just going to put the pin in my glue. So don't forget to always put your pin in as often as possible, because once it dries up, it's very unforgiving. So eyelets, just going to use these small eyelets. So these were purchased on AliExpress, and they're a little bit smaller than what I normally use, but they fit the small side or the small size hole on your crocodile if you have a crocodile. It took me a bit of practice to work out, you know, the fittings for this, or the combination of the fittings, which was the best for this size. And it's not perfect, but I got it as close as possible. And I used the copper color one on these smaller ones. You don't have to put eyelets on here either, guys. I just, I like the eyelets, and I want to hang a bulb pin with something off the edge, because I like little trinkety things hanging off any tabs in my journal like that. And it could be just a bulb pin and a word, doesn't have to be, or a charm or a button. It doesn't have to be anything, you know, too big or lavish. All right, so that's that done. Now we're going to, these should be dry enough to ink and fold over. So let me put them off to the side, and let's get our bone scorer and just crisp up that fold. And then we want to fold that over. And then we want to glue those tabs down. I always like to use my bone scorer or bone folder just to flatten down when gluing anything. And then we've got to ink the outside of this one. So I'm just going to do this one first, and we'll ink them both together. And then we just need to do our focal points on our journaling cards. So you can put whatever you like on the journaling cards. It's sort of what you want to feature in the window more so. But whatever you use, make sure you adhere it down really well, because it's going to be sliding in and out of a pocket. You don't want it to lift after a while. So, you know, I use stickers in my other ones. I did use a die cut, and I made sure that I stuck it down really well. You can also round the corners on these. I actually like leaving them square for this exercise. So you can see inking the outsides really brought it together. That's those two. Now we're going to do butterflies. So as you can see with that one, I've used just a leaf stick. Oh, it's got flowers on it, but just a sticker on that. Put that on there. What have we got? We've got a die cut, and I've painted, and I've brushed some, I think I used glossy accents, but I brushed it over. It was either that or Mod Podge, just to give it a bit of a shiny look. And then this one is a sticker as well, so I didn't use my bone folder on that sticker. Easy enough to fix. Anything you're adhering down like that, always give it an extra firm rub over. Okay, but today I thought we'd use butterflies, and I've picked out two. I looked for my biggest butterflies, you know, to have a bit of a visual impact on there. And what's good about using these is you got extra journaling spot there if you need it. So I'm just going to ink around those, and we'll put those on, and then we just need to do our front bit. So I'm just taking off any white edges on here, just distressing him a little bit, distressing or aging him a little bit. Now this, or both these butterflies in particular, are a digital download that I purchased, so I'll try and find the link for you guys. It's got some absolutely beautiful butterflies. You can see this one's got like a water drop effect. That one's sort of like an aged effect. There's a butterfly with brick backgrounds, and yeah, just some really interesting butterflies to what you normally see. So I'm going to adhere that down, just making sure that I do it really well, so round all the edges. You can also use a glue stick because it's cardstock on cardstock, so a glue stick would work as well. But I've got the art glitter out on my desk, so that's what I'm using. And then we just want to center him. You could put him up a bit, down a bit, entirely up to you. You can put him on an angle. I like him in the middle because that's what I want to feature in my window. The same with this one. And then just give it a little bit of a rub over. These will go great. I'm working on a butterfly journal at the moment, or / botanical, so these will really look great in that. And then when we place it in the window, that's what we get there. And that's what we get there. And you can see that there's how big that tab is to how much is hanging out the edge there. And that'll even push in further if we want it to. And then what I did is I stamped a word. So you can use any word you've got. I had these ones. It's a AliExpress, and I purposely typed word stamps and come across this set. So we're going to, I've already got some stamped out to save a bit of time, because you guys don't need to see me doing too much stamping. So just cut them off into, you know, rough size. There's no real sizing on that. I just wanted a tab on each end of it like that. You can see they're a little bit different sizes, because I'm just going to put a little brad in there. But I wanted to highlight that even more, so I went a little bit heavier on the inking of it, which I'll do now. So as you can see, the inking's a little bit heavier on that, and I liked to angle it across just to feature it even more, because we had the field label word down the bottom already. So if you don't have word stamps, you've only got stickers, grab a little bit of cardstock like that and put, you know, your sticker words on there. So I'm just being really heavy-handed with the ink. And this is walnut stain, this ink. Lovely. Now I'll grab my piercing mat or my cutting mat, and I just want to get the awl, if I can find it, or, you know, your pokey tool, whatever you've got that will pierce a hole. It's on my desk. No, it's okay. We can use the tip of the craft. Oh, here it is. Couldn't see it. Blend it in with the scissors. And then I'm just going to put a mark sort of halfway on each of the ends. And then I will pop it through. Just make sure that it's not near your fingers. And then we'll get some mini brads. I've got some black ones here. And then just pop the brads through. Now I liked the black brads because we've got the black splatters, but if you don't have black, then use whatever you got. Whatever color you use, it's going to have, it'll look like a little metal accent anyway. And then you fold them over at the back. So if you run your finger through there, or if you can see that, there's a little bit of bulk. So one thing I did just to flatten it out even more, I got the end of my awl and I just squished it down, and it just flattened it down. You can see there's no thickness there now. So if you don't have an awl, you may have something in your stash similar. If not, I have these in my shop too. They're probably one of my, once again, my top sellers. You know, if you're binding books and things like that, they become very handy. You would have seen me use it a lot in my previous videos when making journals. And now I'm just going to glue it. And then we're going to, once again, do it on an angle. So I'll show you before I glue that down, you can go just straight across like that, but you know, we've got our word down there too, so it sort of gets a little bit busy. But by angling it a little bit, it makes it stand out. That step's entirely up to you. You may not have a word, you know, down here. You may just want to put something across the bottom. And glue it all across, because as we know, we've got acetate. If you didn't have acetate on there and just had it open, then you would only glue each end. And remember that it takes a little bit longer to dry on the acetate, but I'm pinching each side here because that won't take long at all. Cardstock on cardstock. We pop him off to the side. And we've got our last one here. So I'm going to grab a bulb pen and a charm and just show you. Got my bulb pens. Let's see if I've got a black one. And I'll grab a charm. See if we've got one handy. Let's go with a little bee. So you don't need anything too big. And then we've got a little dangle hanging off the end. Let's do another one. Let's go a nice leaf. Don't think we've got a butterfly. No, we'll go with the leaf. Through the charm first. And there we go, guys. You could put a little bead on there, so you could put a beautiful little blue bead on there to match up with that. But there we go, guys. Journaling card pockets, or journaling card and pockets, because you can never have enough journaling space in your journal. Do want to ink the back of that, which I'll do off camera, and that one as well, just in case, you know, you had it paper clipped in your journal and you were going to use that for journaling space. So we want it to, like we've done the back of our tab there, we want it to all marry in and be uniform together. But two beautiful butterfly ones, and like I said, we've got our leaf, which I've used stickers for, and then, you know, we've got our die cut as well. But have a go at these, guys. I've really enjoyed it. I hope I've given you clear instructions on how to do it. I will be putting the measurements down in the description, so have a look at those. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to put it in the comments, and I'll get back to you on them if you wanted to know anything about that. But I hope I've inspired you guys today. Thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.